Tuesday morning, the 24th of Kythorn, in the year 1489, Dale a Reckoning. Dear Journal, I did it. I finally did it. I can wild shape. I can do it. After all this time, I wish Grandpa Vonka was here so I could show him. It didn't happen just like that, and it required a little help from my friends. Let me tell you how it all came about. Earlier this week, when I arrived at Saltmarsh, I met up with Brother Ferrin the Druid and his trusty companion Loris the Bullfrog. I think I mentioned that, dear Journal, in a previous entry. In any case, being both a halfling and a druid, Brother Ferrin is about the only person I fully trust here in Keoland. OV aside, that is. And so, feeling energized by walking in the footsteps of my prophetic dreams, I confessed everything to Ferrin, about how I was cast out of Myrdelin and not merely left, as I usually spin the tale, and about the reason I was cast away, having failed the druidic trials. Thrice. Ferrin did not offer judgment nor consolation, as I told him my tale, but rather became inquisitive and requested precise details about my shortcomings at the trials. When he came to understand that my failure was that I couldn't wild shape successfully, he murmured, and tugged at his greying whiskers. He put his hands on my shoulders and looked me in the eyes, a tiny smile peeking from underneath his beard, and he said, "Cheer up, Ursula. You follow Seluna and have been a devout and faithful servant to her. It is but a matter of time before she favours you with the druidic boon of the Moon Circle Druids." Then he added, "The full moon is upon us in a couple of nights, and Seluna will be closest to us. Her presence will be felt strongly for those who are attuned to it, especially here by the Moonwell. That night, I would like to invite you to participate in the Compar ceremony I will be conducting. Don't look so puzzled, young Ursula. Your kin of the marshlands rarely perform Compar, as your ways are more rustic." He was struggling for words, more in tune with the old ways. "But there are many paths of druidism, and those of the elves have brought us the Compar ceremony. It lets a circle of druids, or a druid leading a circle of strongly bonded participants, harness the will of the nature deities, focused around a divine focus like the Moonwell." I was intrigued by his words, but mostly I could feel that pull, that arcane divination tug I've been getting for the past months, whenever fate intervened and set me on a path. We talked some more and parted ways, but before I left, Ferrin reminded me, "On the night of the full moon, do not forget Ursula, or we will have to wait a whole nother moon, and bring your new friends with you, the ones from your fateful dreams. We will need a circle of souls bonded together." And that was that, dear Journal. I haven't had a minute to stop and think about it since, what with our tasks from the Saltmarsh Council and our adventure at the not-so-haunted house, where we found a smuggler's den run by Bluebeard's men and led by Albion the sorcerer, with whom we dealt and struck a bargain with. Yesterday, however, returning victorious to collect our rewards from the council, there was a short respite, and the four of us were in one place. I seized the opportunity to ask OV, Anathea, and Guppy if they would join me in this ceremony. To my merriment, they agreed without asking questions or asking for anything in return. And so we found ourselves yesterday night, surrounding the Moonwell, hands held together, as Ferrin began the ceremony. He instructed me to have at least one hand touching the water of the Moonwell, and not remove it for any reason until the ceremony was completed. At first, this seemed like yet another shamanic ritual, Ferrin chanting loudly, carousing around us, hopping from one foot to the other, throwing different leaves and herbs around us and into the water. A strong scent of incense filled the air. It wasn't vile, but it wasn't perfume either. It filled my nostrils and burned my eyes. It was so strong. Tears welling inside my eyes, I had to close them shut, and when I reopened them, the world around us had changed inconceivably. At first I thought we were ported away, but I noticed we were all still standing around the Moonwell, and I could make out some of the trees of the grove still, but the night sky colour has changed to a deep purple, the moonlight imbuing it with a lavender sheen. The earth beneath us was gone, and it seemed and felt as if we were standing on dapples of moonlight. With the exception of a few trees and bushes in our vicinity, the grove and the rolling hills behind it were gone, replaced by dark blots, clouds of deep blue vapours, slowly circling and shifting. I looked away from the surroundings to gaze at my friends, who seemed just as puzzled as me. Ovi's jaw was dropped, and Anathea had a look of half-bewildered, half-suspicious on her face. Guppy's facial expression was an enigma, but one could sense he was tense. I also felt that Ziggy was gone, our telepathic link severed. Looking around, I also noticed that Loris, Ferrin's bullfrog companion, was also nowhere to be found. Cold prickle ran down my spine suddenly, as all around us, puddles of dark vapors formed on the moonlight ground, and from it, hideous biped creatures emerged. Gaunt and spindly their limbs were, but their posture was hunched and crooked, their movement a weird shuffling motion as they creeped towards us, sniffing and panting like dogs on a hunt. Somehow the moonlight touched them not. They seemed to be always moving in the shade. I could not make out their faces, but I could trace, just barely, amber eyes, searching, darting, and finally all focusing on me. My heart began racing, and my instinct was to turn and run, but over the noises of my friends scrambling to arms and shouting words of warning to each other, I could hear Ferrin's voice reminding me, "Do not break the bond with the Moonwell. Do not break the bond." I looked to see the mysterious dark puddles forming in 3 places all around us, and from each a group of these creatures appeared. They all seemed to seek me and rush towards me. Knowing I must not break the ceremony, I climbed into the Moonwell itself, the water coming up to my waist. I quickly cast a sleep spell on the group nearest to me, but the spell just paused them for a brief moment and they just kept going. Luckily, Anathea saw that and moved to block their path to me, slaying one with her weapon just as she finished drawing it, and deftly blocking blows from another 2. But then, as the dead humanoid dropped to the ground, its body began smoking and hissing, and all of a sudden, it exploded with a loud noise and a vile, sulfur-like odor. Anathea winced in pain as shards of bone and acidic flesh bits covered her left side, muttering a curse word in a language I do not comprehend. Ov was muttering the familiar words of his divine blessings, and Guppy was shouting, "Protect the halfling, don't let them reach her," to no one in particular as he positioned himself in the way of another group of these dark enemies. The creatures were no match for my friends in melee, but they all exploded upon death, which was hard to avoid. Ov was healing the wounded, as was I, as much as I could without breaking the ceremony. I was feeling rather safe, as one of these creatures, somehow ducking Guppy's blows and darting between Ov's legs, ran and jumped into the well, on me. Pungent breath, sharp teeth and razor claws were closing on me, the amber eyes soulless but full of malice. Panicking, I tripped, falling in the pool, flailing in the water on my hands and knees, backwards, away from this creature. Suddenly, with a big splash, Ov was in the water too, standing over me, trying to protect me from the creature, but he was too slow. The spindly, dark hunchback savage pushed himself around him and raised a sharp claw to strike me down. It was at that moment I could hear a zooming sound whooshing towards us and could trail a blurry bluish flame speeding from the tree yonder, lodging itself in the creature's back. The hideous savage arched backwards as it let out a single cry of pain and dropped dead in the water. There was someone else here with us, and whoever that was, they were helping us, helping me. I was so surprised I totally forgot about the creatures exploding upon death, but luckily, Ov did not. He threw himself over me, shielding me from the gory shrapnel as it hit his armor in a dozen places. I thanked him as we both stood up, and we could see our friends were winning, subduing most of the creatures. I was feeling a bit calmer when I noticed I could feel Seluna's presence in the Moonwell in a strong manner that I have not felt before. It felt like she was channeling the power of moonlight through me, and that I could harness it in her name. Ferrin dispatched the last of the creatures, nimbly jumping behind a boulder before the corpse exploded. "There, that's the last of them," he said, just as a new black puddle formed behind him, and another one of these creatures, only bigger and brawnier, jumped through it. "Out of the way!" Guppy cried to Ferrin as the tattoos on his barbarian arm began to glow. But Ferrin only managed to look back as the creature dug both its claws deep into his back, viciously lifting the poor halfling off the ground. the sharp talons skewering his body, protruding through his chest and tearing his jerkin. Ferrin's blood gushed out as the creature unskewed him, his lifeless body falling on the weird moonlight ground with a plop. Whoever that creature was, he was much faster than his comrades. He skillfully dodged Anathea's blows and ducked as Guppy shot his tentacle arm forward in an attempt to grab him. With a short skip, the evil creature was in the moonwell with me, atop of me. I could feel the power of Selûne in me, and I wanted to burn the creature in pure moonlight. However, dear journal, I already seen its sharp instincts and its skillful dodges. I would only have one chance at this, or I will end as poor Ferrin has. Biting on my lower lip, I stood up and faced the creature, resolute. With my left hand, I cast a simple water cantrip, shaping a ball of water from the pool and hurtling it towards the creature's face, trying to engulf its nostrils and mouth with the water. Sneering, the creature shifted his appear body and neck muscles to dodge away from the clumsy ball of water. But as the foul creature was busy doing that, it was distracted from the concentrated moonbeam I was guiding towards them with my other hand, moving the circle of lavender light into the well, putting this horrifying enemy in the middle of it. It screeched in pain, its skin beginning to smoke and sear before our eyes. "By Selûne and her light, away with you!" I shouted. "Wither and shrivel, away!" The creature's body melted away, going up in smoke, and in a moment it was gone. Just a few bits of bone circling in the water of the moonwell. Quickly, I used whatever power was left to me to cast a healing word on Ferrin, praying to Selûne it was not too late. It wasn't. His wounds sealed before our eyes, and the colour came back to his body. A moment later, he opened his eyes, blinked, and sat up. The ceremony was over, and the world around us returned to normal. And me, I could feel this new power over me, inside me, and I knew, right there and then, that I could wild shape whenever I wanted to. I didn't get a chance to try it there and then, as OV lifted me up in the air with excitement and bellowed, "Well done, Ursula, you destroyed him." And Anathea smiled at me and said, "Nice going, little one." And Guppy simply folded his arms on his chest and muttered, "Ha! I thought druidic ceremonies were a boring activity." We were all laughing when Ferrin said, "Fellows, aren't you forgetting something?" as he pointed to the tree from where we saw those blue flames attacking the enemies. A lithe human female, in dark leather armor, climbed down and approached us gingerly. She had a kind and tender face, with eyes that glue unnaturally, magically. And that is how we met Vatara, the rogue seeking a clean slate, who joined our merry party of adventurers. But I will tell you more of her, dear journal, in another entry, as we are about to set sail again to the Tower of Xenopus, and I do not want to be late, because Guppy warned me he will sail off without me if I lose track of time again. I'm so glad I have these friends. I shudder to think what would have happened if Ferrin and I were to face this ordeal alone.